warm welcome to State of Business on Art Television. I'm Hushain Ali and let's have a look at the headlines first. Government assures that Sri Lanka will be soon using the rapid antigen test to identify the coronavirus-infected patients. Cabinet approves to establish export production villages. News in detail. The Cabinet approval has been provided to launch the national program on the establishment of export production villages covering areas such as agricultural, fisheries, mechanical and service sectors, allowing these export villages to enter into trade agreements with top-level export companies. Implementation of an export production villages program has been planned to develop the rural production within a formal enterprises model and link those with the export supply chain and to upgrade the local production industries as import replacements. Thereby, by this program, LT is expected to cluster village-wise companies comprised of similar producers and provide opportunities and provisions for the producers to minimize the issues confronted by them. Furthermore, it has been planned to establish those export production villages covering agricultural, fisheries, mechanical and service sectors and set a sustainable existence of those export villages by entering into further trade agreements with top-level export companies. Accordingly, the Cabinet Ministers approved the resolution furnished by the Minister of Trade Dr. Bandula Gunawardena for implementing the said proposed program utilizing the required allocations from Sri Lanka Export Development Board subject to the guidance of the Ministry of Trade. In 2008, the Cabinet of Ministers decided that the activities of the Spices and Allied Products Marketing Board should be handed over to the Department of Agriculture and the institution should be closed from July 27th in 2008. Spices and Allied Products Marketing Board is currently under the purview of the State Ministry of Development of Minor Crops including sugarcane, maize, cashew, pepper, cinnamon, clove, betel-related industries and export promotion. It was noted that a formal mechanism is required to implement the programs identified by the said State Ministry and the proposal to reactivate the Spices and Allied Products Marketing Board and continue its activities was approved by the Cabinet of Ministers. Cabinet has given the nod to formulate a new feasibility study to determine the scope, technical, operational and financial feasibility of the project of increasing the capacity of Sapugaskanda refinery to 100,000 crude oil barrels per day. The Cabinet of Ministers has approved the proposal to initiate a new feasibility study in order to determine the scope, technical, operational and financial feasibility of a project to enhance the existing capacity at Sapugaskanda Oil Refinery. The current capacity of the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation's refinery at Sapugaskanda is only 40,000 crude oil barrels per day and the refinery meets only 25% of the local demand for refined petroleum products while the remaining 75% has to be imported. Thereby, a feasibility study was conducted in 2010 for the renovation and expansion of the refinery to increase its capacity up to 100,000 barrels per day. But subsequent technological changes in the field have made it impossible to proceed on the results of the feasibility study. Accordingly, the Cabinet has approved the proposal to initiate a new feasibility study on this regard. The awarding of uniforms to Buddhist Dharma school teachers island-wide has been in operation since 2004 and 76,000 saris are required for the year 2020 to award Buddhist Dharma school teachers. Accordingly, the Cabinet of Ministers approved the proposal to purchase 76,000 locally manufactured saris from Lanka Salusala for 182.4 million rupees at a cost of 2,400 rupees per each. More than 7,800 COVID-19 cases have been detected from the Minuwanguda COVID-19 cluster, which emerged exactly 1 month ago. Moreover, the epidemiology unit today evening announced that a PCR test conducted on the body of a 68-year-old woman who died at a house in Jampara Street in Colombo has tested positive for COVID-19 virus. The Minuwanguda COVID-19 cluster emerged exactly 1 month ago and now more than 7,800 persons have contracted the COVID-19 from clusters emerged from Minuwanguda and Paliaguda clusters. Thereby, as of 2 p.m. today, the number of COVID-19 deaths in the country went up to 22 as a PCR test conducted on the body of a 68-year-old woman who died at a house on Jampara Street in Colombo on the LST and was later presented to the Judicial Medical Officer for post-mortem examination has confirmed that she is infected with COVID-19 virus. A family member of the deceased woman was diagnosed with COVID-19 and other members were under home quarantine. The immediate cause of her death is mentioned as the COVID pneumonia, and the Director General of Health Services confirms this as the 22nd COVID-19 death reported in the country. In the meantime, 275 new COVID-19 cases were identified in the country yesterday, and most of the cases were reported from Gampaha district. Thereby, 9,940 PCR tests have been carried out in the country yesterday. And as of today evening, another 272 individuals tested positive for COVID-19, resulting in a total of 11,607 cases as at 6:30 p.m. today. Moreover, another 332 COVID-19 patients have recovered and have been later discharged today. The total COVID-19 recoveries of the country now stand at 5,581, and more than 11,300 persons have now contracted the virus in the country. On the other hand, the Education Ministry says its Isurupaya building has been temporarily shut down until further notice after a COVID-19 positive case was detected at the Isurupaya building. Moving on, as the continuation in the field of industry is essential without any breakdown with the current situation of the country, the Ministry of Industries has appointed 3 directors along with the 3 direct telephone numbers to look into the issues faced by the industrialists. The industrialists can find solutions for the issues they happen to face through following telephone numbers as applicable. Stay tuned for more news right after this commercial break. Welcome back after the break. Health Ministry announces that the COVID-19 situation in the country currently stands at alert level 3, where multiple active clusters in multiple regions are emerging. At this juncture, the ministry stresses that strong observance of social distancing, respiratory etiquette, hygiene practices such as hand washing and sanitizing, and proper use of masks are required. Considering the recent rise of COVID-19 clusters in Sri Lanka, the government imposed curfew and isolation regulations to several areas in the country. On the other hand, Health Ministry has also issued guidelines for restriction of activities in non-curfew areas. Thereby, the government announces that in non-curfew imposed areas, only 2 persons are permitted to go out unless engaged in essential services or are permitted to work. Public transportation in non-curfew areas are only allowed to transport passengers up to 75% seating capacity, while those who are engaged in private taxi services are asked to limit the maximum number of passengers to 2 for cars and trishows, while for other types of vehicles, it is limited to 50% of the seating capacity. Government and private sectors are asked to operate with minimum number of staff required, allowing others to work from home where feasible. Utility services such as electricity, water, telecommunications, petrol stations, LP gas stations, motor garages, tyre services, postal and courier services can provide all essential services with minimum number of the staff. Places such as supermarkets, shopping malls, textile shops, grocery, open markets, economic centers, bakery shops, barber and beauty salons, daycare centers, preschools, communication and photocopy shops, rest houses, hotels, gymnasiums and financial institutions in non-curfew areas are allowed to operate under a maximum of 50% of the total number of customers, keeping the 1.5 meter of walking space between persons. However, in these areas, schools, higher education centers including universities, tuition classes, cinemas, theatres, children's parks, swimming pools, casino, nightclubs, spas, day rooms and homestays are not allowed to operate. Moreover, both indoor and outdoor parties and events, public gatherings, carnivals, musical shows, beach parties are not allowed in these areas. It was further noted that weddings in the non-curfew areas can operate with maximum number of 50 guests, adhering to the instructions given. Also, funeral except COVID-19 deaths in these areas can be held, taking all possible precautions and reducing the number of maximum attendees to 25 persons. State Minister of Production, Supply and Regulation of Pharmaceuticals, Professor Chandra Jayasumana assures that Sri Lanka will be soon using the rapid antigen test to identify the coronavirus infected patients. Minister Jayasumana, also replying to a question by a opposition leader, Sajith Premadasa, said that the government hospitals island-wide have enough number of ventilators at the moment.
රැපිඩ් ඇන්ටිජන් ටෙස්ට් එක ඉක්මනින් පරීක්ෂණය කරගන්න පුළුවන් ඒ පරීක්ෂණ පහසුකම අපි හඳුන්වා දෙන්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා මම හිතන්නේ දින 5ක් වගේ ඇතුළත ඒක සාමාන්‍ය විදිහට පරීක්ෂණ කටයුතු සඳහා යොදා ගන්න පුළුවන් වෙයි රැපිඩ් ඇන්ටිජන් ටෙස්ට් එක එතකොට දවසකට විශාල ප්‍රමාණයක් පරීක්ෂණ කටයුතු කරන්න පුළුවන් වෙයි ඒ වගේම සාමූහික වශයෙන් විශාල පිරිසකට ඒ පරීක්ෂණ කටයුතු කරන්න පුළුවන් වෙයි කියන විශ්වාසය අප තුළ තියෙනවා ගරු විපක්ෂ නායකතුමා වෙන්ටිලේටර් පිළිබඳව කරුණක් මතු කරා මේ අවුරුද්දේ ජනවාරි මාසයේ මේ ශ්වසන ආධාරක උපකරණ ගරු විපක්ෂ නායකතුමනි 165ක් අපේ රටට ගෙනහල්ලා තියෙනවා. ඒ වගේම ගිය මාසේ 200ක් ගෙනහල්ලා තියෙනවා ගරු සෞඛ්‍ය අමාත්‍යතුමේ කිව්වා වගේ. මේ වෙනකොට රජයේ රෝහල් 123ක ශ්වසන ආධාරක උපකරණ වෙන්ටිලේටර් 823ක් ක්‍රියාත්මක මට්ටමේ පවතිනවා. වෙන්ටිලේටර් කියලා කියන්නේ උණමනින උපකරණ වගේ දහස් ගණන් එකපාර ගෙනේව නෙමේ මිලියන ගණනාවක් මිල අධික උපකරණ අවශ්‍යතාව අනුව තමයි ඒවා රටට ගෙනෙන්නේ. ඒ නිසා ලංකාවේ මේ වෙනකොට රෝහල් වල තිබිය යුතු මට්ටමින් ඒ ප්‍රමාණ වලින් ඒ වෙන්ටිලේටර්ස් ප්‍රමාණය තියෙන බව දන්වන්න කැමතියි.
State Minister of Production, Supply and Regulation of Pharmaceuticals, Professor Chandra Jayasumana, also told the Parliament that he had never recommended the Ayurvedic mixture Sudarshana to be prescribed as a Western medicine. However, he added that the government has allowed it to be conducted clinical tests at the government hospitals.
අද අයිලන්ඩ් පත්තරේ මුලපිටේ තියෙනවා ඔබතුමා කියලා තියෙනවා කියලා මේ සුදර්ශන කියලා ආයුර්වේද බෙහෙතක් පැණියක් රජයේ රෝහල් වල පාවිච්චි කරන්න කියලා ඒක කිසිසේත්ම නුසුසුදුයි කියලා ශ්‍රී ලංකා ඇසෝසියේෂන් ඔෆ් ක්ලිනිකල් ෆාර්මකොලොජි ඇන්ඩ් තෙරපියුටික්ස් කියන කණ්ඩායම ඉදිරිපත් කළා කියනවා
ශ්‍රී ජයවර්ධනපුර විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයේ වෛද්‍ය පීඨයේ මහාචාර්ය දුලිකා ගුණසේකර මැතිණිය ඇතුළු කණ්ඩායමක් ඒ පරීක්ෂණය කරලා තියෙන්නේ මේක ආයුර්වේදයේ තිබුණ ඖෂධයක් ඇසුරෙන් බටහිර ක්‍රමවේදයකට අනුව පරීක්ෂණ පවත්වලා නිෂ්පාදනය කරපු ඖෂධයක්. මේක මේ මොහොතේදී රජයේ රෝහලක රෝගීන්ට ලබා දීමේ හැකියාවක් නැහැ. ඒ සඳහා තවත් අධිය කිහිපයක් ඉස්සරහට ගමන් කරන්න ඕන බටහිර ඖෂධයක් හැටියට ලබා දෙන්න. එතකොට මම පැවසුවේ මේක පරීක්ෂණාත්මක මට්ටමින් යොදා ගැනීම සඳහා අවශ්‍ය සායනික පහසුකම් ඒ කටයුතු රෝහල් වල ලබා දීමේ අපිට හැකියාවක් තියෙනවා. ඒ එතිකල් ක්ලියරන්ස් එක හරියට ගත්තොත් ඒ සඳහා අමාත්‍යවරයා හැටියට මට මැදිහත් වීමක් කරලා උදව් කරන්න පුළුවන්. එහෙම නැතුව මේ ඖෂධය එකපාරට රෝගීන්ට ලබා දීමක් ගැන කතා වුණේ නැහැ කිසිසේත්ම. අමාත්‍යතුමනි බටහිර ඖෂධයක් හැටියට සුදර්ශන ඒ පැණිය හෝ ඒ ඖෂධය ලබා ගැනීමට හෝ ලබා දීම සඳහා කිසිදු නිර්දේශයක් කරලා නැහැ. හැබැයි ආයුර්වේදයේ තියෙන සුදර්ශන චූර්ණය කියන එක අවුරුදු 10 ගාණක් යොදාගත්ත දෙයක්. ඒ ආයුර්වේද ඖෂධයක් ලෙස ලබා දීමේ හැකියාවක් තියෙනවා.
Stay tuned for stock updates. Welcome back after the break. The trading at Colombo Stock Exchange ended on a positive note today. The All Share Price Index gained 129.69 points to close at 5,843.27 and the S&P SL20 gained 31.45 points to close at 2,294.39. The turnover was 2.7 billion rupees and over 168 million shares were traded. Up next are Forex rates. And with that, we'll be winding up for today. See you tomorrow with State of Business at the usual time. Until then, take care and good night.